I chained the only boat ramp on the lake during peak dinner hour. 50 wealthy diners started screaming boats trapped on the wrong side of my gate. News cameras rolling while the HOA president shrieked that I was destroying her business. What she didn't understand, what she never bothered to ask, was that she'd built her little empire on my family's land, and I was finally done letting her steal it. Let me back up. My name is Garrett Holloway. I'm 58 years old, retired, the kind of guy who thought the most dramatic decision left in his life would be whether to open a small bait shop by the water or just fish every morning until my knees finally gave out. My grandfather bought our 40 acres on this lake back in 1952. He built the dock himself. He built the boat ramp with his own hands too, not to make money, not to keep people out, but because he believed a lake should belong to the people who love it. For 70 years, families learned to fish here. Kids fell in the water. Grandparents laughed, and nobody ever had to swipe a credit card to touch the shoreline. My late wife Sarah understood that better than anyone. Every summer she ran a small bass derby for local kids. No sponsors, no entry fee, just sandwiches, lemonade, and laughter. When she passed 3 years ago, that lake was the only place that still felt like her. I wasn't interested in progress or development or whatever buzzword people were using that year. I just wanted peace. Quiet mornings, loons calling across the water, coffee on the dock. That peace lasted right up until Vivian Blackstone moved in. Vivian came from Seattle 18 months before everything exploded. She arrived in a leased Tesla designer sunglasses and the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. 6 weeks after buying her vacation-style house, she ran for HOA president, promised modernization, promised increased property values, promised sophistication, like we were all supposed to be embarrassed we'd lived just fine without it. Her first move was banning fishing from HOA shoreline because, and I quote it, conflicted with the aesthetic. Her second was complaining about undesirable elements using the lake. That meant locals, kids in old life jackets, veterans with aluminum boats, people like us. Then came the meeting. She clicked open a PowerPoint in our little community center like she was pitching venture capital. Floating restaurant, premium dining destination, boat valet, $15 launch fees, $45 entrees. She talked about the lake like it was a blank canvas, not a place where generations had lived and loved and buried their memories. When I raised my hand and mentioned the boat ramp sat on private property, my property, she smiled that practiced dismissive smile. Sometimes progress requires tough decisions, Garrett, she said, like she was explaining gravity to a child. That was the first time I felt it. That quiet, sickening realization that someone with money and confidence had decided my history was an inconvenience. Construction started at 5 in the morning the following Monday. Diesel engines, cranes, concrete mixers. The smell hit before the noise. The lake went from pine clean air to exhaust in a day. Muddy runoff clouded water my grandchildren had learned to swim in. I filed a noise complaint, got a scripted response. Mrs. Blackstone has all necessary permits. The floating platform grew fast. Too fast. Dead center of my view. No fishing buoys stabbed into the water like warning signs. Vivian hadn't just built a restaurant, she'd planted it like a flag. I tried to fight it the right way. I spent days at the courthouse digging through permits. Found the problem. No environmental approval. None. A commercial kitchen dumping grease and waste into a freshwater lake without state review. I made one anonymous call. Construction stopped within hours. The silence when those machines shut down was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years. Vivian showed up at my porch that afternoon in heels, red-faced, waving a cease and desist like it was a weapon. She screamed, accused me of sabotage, threatened lawyers. I stayed calm, smiled, sipped my coffee and said I was just worried about water quality. She left in a spray of gravel and fury. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The HOA fined me, accused me of obstruction, claimed the boat ramp had become community property through adverse possession. Legal nonsense designed to confuse people who didn't know better. Then they installed a gate, electronic, credit card reader, $25 a day to use the ramp my grandfather built. The moment that broke me wasn't legal, it wasn't financial, It was a 10-year-old boy standing there with his fishing pole while a security guard told his grandfather the card reader wouldn't take cash. The kid asked why they couldn't fish anymore. I heard it from my kitchen window. That small, confused voice carried across the water and hit me right in the chest. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and wondered if maybe Vivian was right. Maybe I was just an old man clinging to the past. Maybe progress really did mean letting go, letting memories get priced out, letting grief turn into nostalgia instead of something alive. Then I remembered my grandfather's voice. Always know where your land ends. At dawn, I grabbed my metal detector and started walking the property line. Found the old survey stakes, 3 of them. The 4th closest to the ramp had fresh footprints around it. Someone had been digging. Recently. Someone in expensive hiking boots. That was the moment the doubt burned off. I called a surveyor. GPS confirmed it. The ramp sat entirely on my land. And the kicker, the lake bed beneath part of Vivian's restaurant platform, belonged to me too. Riparian rights, 50 feet out. She wasn't just using my ramp, she was trespassing underwater. While I was digging, I found something else. A loan document buried in county records. $400,000. Secured against HOA assets, the pool, the clubhouse, the tennis courts. Used to fund Vivian's restaurant. No vote, no disclosure. That wasn't ambition, that was theft. Everything clicked. The rush, the intimidation, the desperation. She wasn't wealthy, she was running, and she'd gambled the entire community to save herself. I stopped feeling angry. I started feeling focused. The restaurant's insurance didn't cover access disputes. No ramp, no coverage. No coverage, no business. One gate could collapse everything. So I built one. Commercial grade. Hydraulic. Solar powered. Installed on my land with permits filed and cameras rolling. We turned it on at 5 p.m. Friday, right when the dinner crowd arrived. Chaos doesn't even begin to describe it. Luxury SUVs idled. Guests shouted. Phones came out. Vivian arrived 20 minutes later and lost what little control she had left. Kicked the gate. Pulled at steel that could stop a truck. Screamed my name like volume could rewrite property law. That night she tried to cut the power. Cameras caught everything. The sparks. The swearing. The realization that she was outmatched. By Saturday, her staff was walking out. Paychecks bouncing. No tips. No customers. Sunday morning, 2 social workers knocked on my door because someone had reported me as mentally unfit. I invited them in, showed them my files, my surveys, my permits. They left embarrassed. Monday, the bank called in the loan. Tuesday, the judge dismissed her emergency injunction in under 5 minutes. Thursday night, at a packed town hall with cameras everywhere, Vivian tried one last time. Accused me of destroying the community, of hating progress, of standing in the way of prosperity. I walked up with a folder and told the truth. The loan documents, the surveys, the video of her trying to ram my gate at 3 in the morning, the attempted bribe of a county official. The room went silent. Then the handcuffs clicked. They let her out while she screamed about lawsuits and conspiracies and betrayal. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, tired, steady, watching someone finally face the consequences of thinking money meant ownership. The lesson was simple. If someone builds their future by stealing your past, sooner or later, it collapses under its own weight.